We're still trying to find out the best All-Ireland winner of the last 16 seasons. If you haven't been paying attention so far, what we've basically done is drawn out all the All-Ireland winners from 2004 to 2019, drawn them in lots, knockout competition where you vote on ourgame.ie to see who goes through until ultimately you vote on the winner. So today it's the 8th and final clash in the round of 16. It's Tipperary 2016 against Kilkenny 2009. Michael Verney, we've been chatting about it, and we ended up watching back the kind of highlights of both videos, Ger Canning's commentary, and just how much we love the way he talks. I mean, the Burr Club man, Michael Verney, take it away.
Yeah, Shane Stapleton stymied by the Burr Club man. It's funny to listen back to it because he has like isms, no more than anyone else has isms, but his are just quite comical when you listen back to them. And when you have one in your head that you've heard, and then you hear it again and you keep hearing it, it's quality. Yeah.
Yeah, I love when he talks about lads taking frees. So, Michael Verney, maximum no, what is it? Maximum care, minimum effort. That sort of one. I like that now. Let's look at these two teams. 2009 Kilkenny. This was the team that completed the 4 in a row, probably against the best challenge they'd had since 2006 when they beat Cork, a Cork team that was going for a 3 in a row. So this Tipperary team had pushed them so far in the league final, taking them to extra time. But everyone still fancied Kilkenny to come through because it was a team chasing 4 in a row and they basically had stars in every position.
Yeah, well, 2 years before this, like Tipperary were on the floor when Babs Keaton was over them in '07, and it was just, it was an absolute catastrophe. It was all over the place. Liam Sheedy came in, did a brilliant year in '08, won the league, won Munster, were beaten probably surprisingly in All-Ireland semi-final, but they arrived in their first All-Ireland final and very, very young, a lot of young new faces on the scene. And it was probably just a bit of inexperience maybe that caught them out, but by Jez, to put up some challenge to Kilkenny that day. To me, that's still up there, one of my top 2 or 3 best hurling games of all time. I think it just had everything. I remember Owen Kelly was absolutely outstanding. Lara Corbett started 11 and got 4 great points. He pulled Brian Hogan out. But funnily enough, when you look back at it, like Tip were limited enough that day. Tip only had 5 scorers that day, whereas Kilkenny had 11. And I'm sure, as you will go into detail now, they were able to call on some big artillery off the bench as well that Tipperary weren't able to call on. Tipperary were in a much better place the year after to eventually take them down, but it was an almighty challenge they put up to them.
Yeah, let's look at that Kilkenny bench in 2009. So 51st or 49th minute on comes TJ Reid, future hurler of the year. 51st minute on comes Michael Fennelly, future hurler of the year. And then on comes Martin Comerford, who ends up scoring a crucial goal. And Kilkenny got 2 goals in the space of a minute to kind of turn this game around. Tipper a couple of points ahead. Obviously, Benny Dunn got himself sent off. I don't think anyone has any qualms about that. Then the penalty, huge qualms over that because Richie Power was clearly fouled well outside the 14. And that was a huge sway. I think Tipperary were 2 points ahead, went 1 behind, and actually Pádraig Maher kind of hooked Brendan Cummins as he was possibly going to save the penalty, and who knows what would have happened then. But it would have been a fair job to hold out that Kilkenny team. 2 goals in a minute and it's kind of game over. But that Kilkenny team, it's very hard to pick any holes in it. PJ Ryan, man of the match in the All-Ireland the year before, Michael Kavanagh, JJ Delaney, Jackie Tyrrell, who actually scored a point from playing that game incredibly, and Tommy Walsh, Brian Hogan and John Tennyson. Yeah, you were saying that you just kind of had almost forgotten that John Tennyson played in that game.
Yeah, like he obviously played in the '06 final, didn't play in '07, but Noel Hickey didn't start in '09. JJ went back from 7 to 3, and then Tennyson came in at 7. Just you mentioned there, PJ Ryan was man of the match in this final. You said the year before, but just a couple of little things, right? This Kilkenny team was unbelievable. So this was the 125th anniversary of the GAA, probably the most fitting winners ever, 4-time winners. What will go down as the best, probably the best team of all time, the best team I've ever seen. But just a couple of things on it, right? So Kilkenny were beaten in the All-Ireland final last year. Richie Hogan's sending off changed the game, right? Albeit it was a lot later. Benny Dunn's sending off was massive in that game. So Tipperary played the last 20 minutes of an All-Ireland final with 14 men, which isn't talked about that much, okay? So that's just one mitigating factor. The penalty, that was in no way a penalty. If anything, it was a free for over carrying. It was a free out. So that call totally changed the game. Shefflin roofed it, as you say. Paddy Matter kind of hook Cummins. He roofed it. A minute later, they had another goal, and the game was over. And then on the third point, Tipperary could have had Kilkenny out of sight. They made an absolute hero of PJ Ryan that day. They did the exact opposite a year later. But like some of the shots and just kind of weak, kind of watery shots that were his kind of level that suited him. And it's just like when you put all that together, it was an unbelievable match, an unbelievable team. I wonder how good was the Kilkenny performance. I think they were dominated for the guts of an hour, to be honest with you. And I think between the sending off and the penalty decision that should never have been, and Tipperary's kind of inefficiency in front of goal, I think it was more a combination of that than how good Kilkenny were on that given day. That's just thinking back and maybe playing devil's advocate a small bit, because everybody thinks this Kilkenny 09 team is going to win the whole thing, let alone win this battle between them and Kilkenny 16. But I don't think it's as cut and dry as maybe people think.
Well, I'm always trying to find a way to get Tipperary to win these sort of things. But like, look at that Kilkenny forward line. Richie Hogan, a very young Richie Hogan, Henry Shefflin, Owen Larkin, Eddie Brennan, Richie Power, Aidan Fogarty. Now the flip side is, right, if you jump forward to the Tipperary team that won it in 2016, I think the Kilkenny team, the team that Kilkenny beat in 2009 was a much better team than Tipperary beat in 2016. That was, Kilkenny had obviously won the 2 All-Irelands before that. We're going for a 3 in a row in 2016. But realistically, did they win that All-Ireland in 15 because were they the best Kilkenny team of that generation or of this century to even win an All-Ireland? Probably not. So they were far more for the taking, whereas Tip in 09 were an upcoming team and very much put Kilkenny to the pin of their collar and maybe could have quite won it. But like, if you look at the Tipperary team in 2016, the full forward line, which is Bubbles O'Dwyer, the Killinall clubman, Seamus Callan and John McGrath. They scored 221 between them, 215 from play. Incredibly, that Kilkenny full forward line in 2009, Eddie Brennan, Richie Power and Aidan Fogarty, they scored just 4 points between them. All 4 from play now. But geez, there's a fair difference in that. But I would put that down to the difference being that Kilkenny beat a much better team in 2009 than Tip beat in 2016.
Kilkenny beat a brilliant Tipperary team, a Tipperary team that would, the nucleus of it would still be there in 14 when they contested one of the greatest games ever played, and when they won one in 16, as we're talking about here, and then won one in 19 again. The Kilkenny team in 16 was on the way out. Like, Joey Holden has never played fullback again. Shane Prendergast was retired not long after. Kieran Joyce was retired not long after. TJ Reid started midfield, amazingly. That was Owen Larkin's last match to play for Kilkenny. Kevin Kelly is not on the Kilkenny panel anymore. Liam Blanchfield has failed to make the impact that we thought he would. Robert Lennon came on, is no longer on the Kilkenny panel. And Lester Ryan came on, who's no longer on the Kilkenny panel as well. Like, there's an unbelievable amount of change in that Kilkenny team from then to now, and that was kind of like the last the last punch of a kind of a dying empire at that time. There's been a lot of movement and shake and a lot of new bodies in since then, whereas the Tipperary team was only starting out. This Kilkenny team was on the way out.
Just kind of an interesting point in Brian Cody in 2009 versus Brian Cody in 2016, because he got criticised so much in 2016 for not making the substitutions. Like, Rob Lennon and Lester Ryan both came on the hour mark when the horse had long bolted, and the fact that Joey Holden was left on his own in an unmanageable situation, one-on-one with Seamus Callan with good ball going in. Like, no one's going to stop him. Maybe Dahi Burke's about the only guy out there who'd have a chance in that sort of situation. Whereas Kilkenny 2009, it's partly because he had a much better bench, and it's very easy to be a genius of a manager when you can throw in like TJ Reid and Michael Fennelly and Martin Comerford. So, but definitely there are big question marks over Cody and what he did in 2016. It's interesting, the 2016 manager for Tipperary, Michael Ryan. Now, this is the only one of his 3 seasons where he would have been happy with what came from it, the fruits of his labour, because 2017 and 2018 were both very, very disappointing. Michael Ryan actually has only ever, I think that was the only time that Michael Ryan has faced off with Brian Cody. So you're in a situation where everyone knows Brian Cody's the greatest manager of all time, but he has Michael Ryan has a winning record against him all the same. So that's a bit of a strange one.
Imagine like Michael Ryan is a lovely fella, but imagine like he was a bollocks and he was down in Upper Church going into the pub and he's like, yeah, 1-0 over Cody, and he's like it's the sort of lad, if you had an Egypt and it happened to him, he'd absolutely dine out on it for the rest of his life. Michael Ryan definitely wouldn't, because he's a very down to earth kind of fella and wouldn't be doing anything like that. But it's unreal. That was the first year. That was the first and only year under Ryan that they played really good stuff. A lot of people would say it was almost like the remnants of Eamon O'Shea the year before, and they played that similar style. I think they went away from it in 17 and 18, started playing way more direct, which didn't suit them. But in 16 they were playing great stuff. Like, that was the same year. Absolutely obliterated Watford in the Munster final. Like, absolutely beat them out the gate. A brilliant performance. And in fairness to Tip, when Tip win an All Ireland, it's number one, it's against Kilkenny in recent years. It's nearly always convincing, and they put up ridiculous scorelines. They put up ridiculous scorelines, and like it was 418 or 419 in 10, 220. What was it? 229 in 16, and was it 325 last year? Like, they're outrageous scores. In fairness, when things click for them, they're unstoppable, and definitely click for them in the 16 final.
The question I'd ask you then is that Tip full forward line that I just was raving on about there, would they have done as well against Michael Kavanagh, JJ Delaney, Jackie Tyrrell? You could make a point that just if the amount of ball that went in against them in 2009 went in 2006, or sorry, that went in 2016 went in 2009, that they'd probably be lambs to the slaughter. And also the fact that, Seamus Callanan had a goal chance that he probably feels like he should have taken in 2009. Seamus Callanan in 2016 had kind of learned more experience, and I think he's probably going to bury those. But Michael Kavanagh, JJ Delaney and Jackie Tyrrell, are they going to hold out Bubbles, Callanan and John Dwyer or John McGrath?
Yeah, the more important thing on that, I would say, is the three lads in front of them. Is Walsh, Hogan and Tennyson, and that they would not have allowed that, and the lads up the pitch as well wouldn't have allowed that sort of acres in front of the three lads. But it'd definitely be like Jackie on Bubbles. He marked Bubbles in the 14 replay. Marked him in the drawn game, had a tough time with him. Marked him in the replay, was very good on him. JJ on Callanan, so we all know they had great duels in 14 and other days as well. And Kavanagh on John McGrath. I very hard to give the upper hand to either of them, I'd say. If it was a dogfight, you know what way I'd be leaning though.
You see, now I've always had a problem with this, because in a tight game, Kilkenny win. And this is what Kilkenny love to say. And you hear, Tip don't have the balls and all this kind of stuff that came out of Jackie Tyrrell's book. And you hear Owen Larkin saying that Tip don't like it in tight games. But as I've said before, all these games start out tight. They all start out 0 apiece. A lot of these games are drawn with 20 minutes to go, like they were in 2016. It was a close game in the first half in 2019. There was a point in it at halftime of 2010. And yet Tip hammer Kilkenny. So what is it about, we'll selectively decide that these ones were tight because we could only beat you by a couple of points, but when you hammer us out the gate, no, that wasn't a tight game, that didn't kind of suit us, so we can just selectively decide it. That didn't matter as much as the other ones where you kept into us all game.
It's a coping mechanism. 100% it's a coping mechanism. It's one of the basic kind of things in psychology. There was always, remember doing sports psychology in college, and it was like one of the reasons why I didn't win because I didn't try. Do you ever see that? I wasn't really on it today. I'll try, and that's basically, you're creating conditions, you're creating excuses for another part of the word, if that's what you want to say. That's what it is. And they were able to, Kilkenny had in their head that if they were able to bring them into a dogfight, they'd win and keep it a dogfight. If it went open, they didn't win. So that's kind of the way. It's a coping mechanism to deal with, basically to make you feel better on the long winter nights if you don't win the All Ireland or you get beaten in the final.
What about Henry Shefflin then? 2009 Henry Shefflin, he's pretty close to the peak of his powers. It's all in and around that time, anywhere between two. Well, sure, look, there's probably a 10-year span there because he won Hurler of the Year so many times. How does Henry Shefflin fare in this game? Does he play centre forward? Is he up against Ronan Maher? Obviously, he had a brilliant year. Pádraig Maher's wing back, like he'd been full back in 2009. He's out in the half back line, and you're looking at a wing forward line of Richie Hogan, Henry Shefflin, and Owen Larkin. So, how do you see that faring out?
I think 09 Henry, I could be wrong, it was either 09 or 08. when he got the most outrageous, one of the most outrageous points I've ever seen against Cork in the league in Nolan Park. It was the year Cork went on strike. That could have been 08 now, but it was in around that time when he went in this mazy solo run the length of the field and done a little dummy flick and put it out over the bar. And remember they got clapped in and a standing ovation going in at half time. Henry was in his absolute pomp then. Would have been very interesting to see him come up against it. Ronan Matter was, I remember that, like Ronan Matter, TJ went in on Ronan Matter, mightn't have been from the start, but definitely went in on him early enough. And Ronan Matter cleaned him out in the air. In fairness to him, he absolutely cleaned him out. And he was just kind of after really burst on the scene. He'd obviously debuted in 14, but was settled into the team now. And like Shefflin had been around in 16, he probably would have went in centre forward on him too, because he was a relative rookie at the time, and that's invariably what they did. They put him on Kevin Moore in 08. They put him on John O'Keefe in 11. They usually put him on a player that had little experience. But Ronan Matter does like to sit back as well, and Henry could play anywhere out around there. So it would have been a serious battle. You do well keep Henry to like 2 or 3 points from play realistically, and it's the other kind of conducting and orchestrating that he does that is even more influential nearly than a score getting, because he just seems to bring everybody into the game. It's funny, just reading Owen Larkin's book, he kind of mentioned it. He talked about Henry and he said, like Henry, like someone remember someone telling me you should never pass the ball in the forward line, particularly you should never pass the ball to someone who's inferior. So inferior in terms of ability. Well, Henry Shefflin never obviously had that approach, because he always gave the pass. He never took the shot on if it was a 50-50 shot or if there was someone in a better position. He always gave the better pass. And that's what Larkin said. And that's why he actually made a comment on TJ Reid and Richie Hogan coming through, that a lot of the time they didn't give the pass. Whereas the Eddie Brennans, the Shefflins always did. But that was one of the best part of Shefflin's game, is that he always was the ultimate team player.
No, I'd agree with that. And actually, you're reminding me of probably one of the nicest hand passes, most sympathetic hand passes that I've seen in recent years, was Shefflin was soloing through against Tipperary in the 2012 All-Ireland semi-final that they eventually won by a cricket score. But the right-handed hand pass over the top for TJ Reid to just slot home. It was a beautiful hand pass, must have gone 15 or 20 yards. Right, let's look at the paths to glory that both of these teams had. So 2009, Kilkenny beat Galway 220 to 13 points. Shefflin scored 10 that day, so that was a tight enough sort of game.
That was Galway's Leinster debut, I think, wasn't it? Remember Canning skint JJ after about 2 minutes, and Galway were leading after about 50 or 55 minutes. Owen Larkin was very good that same day.
If I remember correctly, that was the day that Canning started off brilliantly. He ended up scoring 2-9, but after scoring that goal at the start, Kilkenny sat Brian Hogan back in front of Canning, and then it was very hard for him to get into the game after that. And I think also Tommy Walsh might have put in a heavy tackle earlier in that game, and that was kind of the narrative of him playing on the edge and being slightly dirty started, and of course he ended up earlier the year. But there was that. Then Dublin gave Kilkenny a good challenge in the Leinster final. It was 218 to 18 points. Now at the same time, that wasn't a Dublin team that were going to win in All-Ireland, but they were I think that was Daly's first year, and they were starting to look all right. From that point on, Kilkenny beat Waterford 223 to 315. So not a bad effort from Waterford, but obviously still a little bit off the pace before beating Tipperary in the final. Now, if we look at the Tipperary path to the final in 2016, I think they were very impressive throughout the year. Not that Kilkenny weren't, but I definitely think Tip were. Started off with a 22 points to 13 win over Cork and Thurles. Remember, William Egan went sweeper that day, and Cork they were all over the place. Then 312 to 116 win over Limerick. Now, Bubbles had been sent off after about 15 minutes or something, so to win that with 14 men was impressive enough. Battered Waterford in the Munster final 513 to 13, and then a classic against Galway in the All-Ireland semi-final 219 to 218. So if you were to look as the sort of compromise person here, being from Tipperary, I'm going to allow you to decide which was the more impressive route.
No, I would have said the Tipperary 16 route was more impressive, to be honest with you. They had Cork at arm's length, as you said, beat Limerick with 14 men, hammered Waterford. That was kind of the start. Well, it wasn't the start. It was the middle of the kind of Galway rivalry. They obviously played in 14. Another brilliant game in 16. Just got through that, and then up until like I would have said that they had the harder path. Like if you look at Kilkenny, weren't outstanding to beat Galway. Right, only really got going in the second half. Kind of always had Dublin at arm's length, but weren't overly impressive doing it. Beat, obviously, hammered Waterford in the 08 final, and Waterford, it was kind of a bit of redemption for them. They were very competitive in that semi-final. But I would say Tipperary were more impressive up until the final. As regards the final showings then as well, I would have said Kilkenny were out-hurled for an hour in the 09 final. I wouldn't say Tipperary were out-hurled in the 16 final, but they just should have been probably further ahead, and there was a couple of mistakes at the back and things like that. Kevin Kelly got a goal for Kilkenny maybe that kind of kept them in the game. They were actually winning 1-14-15 early in the second half, and then Tipperary just tore off. So like I think the romanticism about the 09 team is that, you know, that kind of cemented their status as the greatest hurling team ever. They were the undisputed champions, the greatest of them all, or whatever. But like, if you're taking a year on year, like 16 was impressive enough from Tipperary, and you can pick holes in the Tipperary team that you maybe couldn't pick in the Kilkenny team. But looking at it, taking it as face value, 16 was very impressive from Tip.
Yeah, look, I mean, I'm always going to side towards Tipperary and all of these things, you know, because your mind can't help but drag you that way towards home. But I would say that Kilkenny midfield, probably 2009, Michael Rice and Derek Ling probably had the edge over Michael Breen and Brendan Maher. And obviously, just Breen at midfield, it just hasn't fully happened. It didn't fully happen for him in 2016. I think he was taken off in both the semi-final and final that year. I mean, obviously, I've spoken ad nauseum about how I'd prefer to see him in the back line. I don't think the Tipperary bench, even though now Jason Ford and Niall O'Mara have obviously cemented themselves, I don't think that bench was as impressive, obviously, as the Kilkenny hurler the year laden bench that came in. And then the three other subs used by Tipperary are all off the panel. So I think from that point of view, Kilkenny have a certain edge there. So in a word, what way are you going to go?
Kilkenny.
Of course you are. Okay, so we're going to put it out to the people on ourgame.ie. Just vote underneath the video and let us know what you think. And obviously, if you've missed any of the other videos, just click on the Best All-Ireland Winners tab just up at the top corner and you'll be able to catch up on them all.
Just a big one there, Shane, before we finish up. Obviously, the Kilkenny 2016 final, they were missing Michael Fennelly in the 16 final as well, which was massive and needs to be mentioned, in fairness. Tipperary beat a team, I would say, probably without their, apart from TJ Reid or Richie, like their most influential player, and that has to be taken into account, in fairness, when you're stacking up the two teams against each other. Just the quality of the opposition, as we mentioned, the quality of what Kilkenny beat in 09 is just so much better than what Tip beat in 16.